the way I would.
What's going on, guys? Greek Freak here, and in this video we're going to be talking about the Portland Trail Blazers and them looking to trade Hassan Whiteside. Now, of course, the Trail Blazers have not been doing as great as what many people maybe would have even expected from a team like this. And one of those things that, of course, comes up with the Hassan Whiteside trade that I covered last season was I thought it was a pretty good trade, considering the fact this situation could occur. In a situation that you didn't think that it was going to work out, he's on a one-year contract. You could try to move that around. There's plenty of players out there that are on big contracts that you can be able to move, and that's who they're going to be trying to go for in these trade rumors. So, of course, whenever we go out here and we see the team players that they're interested in, it is Kevin Love and Blake Griffin, two players that have big contracts and, of course, have a little bit of a downside to them, usually occurring around the injury side. Now, other than that, I think the fact that these players are very solid players, and right now for this video we're going to very much concentrate on Blake Griffin, since I've already made a Kevin Love video about a year ago. Considering the fact that Kevin Love is from Portland, it makes plenty of sense that we see something like that to be able to come into occurrence. But of course, I want to be able to cover the other one, which is Blake Griffin, which I made a video about them most likely wanting to trade Blake Griffin due to the past anyway. But as far as the Portland Trail Blazers performance this season, we're looking at a 4-8 team, and of course, whenever we've been looking at it, the Portland Trail Blazers has very much been surprising people with their consistency of being on top of the Western Conference, despite not even making extreme moves or things such as that. We definitely see the fact that they've been one of those types of teams. Now, of course, we saw very much a disappointing Blazers team when it came to facing a semi-injured team in the Golden State Warriors, but they still ended up getting swept anyway, despite being a team that actually led by majority of that series. It was just those second half collapses, and most importantly that fourth quarter, that usually ended up getting them. Now, whenever we look at Hassan Whiteside, we're looking at about 15 points per game, 12 rebounds per game, 1.7 blocks per game, 57% shooting from the field, and a 73% free throw shooting. So we're looking at a player that, of course, is one of the better rebounders in this league, a younger player, not directly one of the youngest in this situation, but definitely a younger player than the two players that they're definitely trying to go after. So it's something that they can go after. And of course, the big thing's going to be the contract situation, and that's most likely what would interest these other teams in this trade in the first place. Now, of course, he has a $27 million contract. Now, many people may sit there and say, well, he's not really worth a max contract by anyone. But this is his only season left. Therefore, meaning if you're trying to get rid of a Kevin Love salary cap or a Blake Griffin salary, this allows you to be able to make that move, and then next year be freed up in cap space and be able to make moves, try to get assets out of things such as that, and be able to actually be able to perform and make a full rebuild, rather than using up all of your cap in the first place on players that aren't really helping you win a championship at this moment. So it's definitely a situation that can definitely occur. And when we look at Blake Griffin, of course I'm using last year's stats instead of this year, since he's only played 2 games this year. He was averaging around 24.5 points per game, about 5.5 rebounds per game, and about 5.5 assists per game, while shooting 36% from the three-point line, which was a huge improvement from him, especially considering the beginning of his career, and shooting 46% from the field, which isn't great for a big, but somebody who shoots three-pointers as much as he did is a reason why it's definitely dropped off as far as on the field goal percentage side. Now, of course, one of the things and benefits, of course, of a Blake Griffin is the fact he is a big that can pass the ball, and one of the better ones at it. He, of course, can get rebounds. He's not a terrible rebounder, but, of course, he's not known for rebounding as many bigs we would expect whenever we think about it. And, of course, an athletic, explosive type player who can, of course, run the breaks with players such as that. And, of course, Portland most likely looking between those two players because they want somebody who, one, can spread the floor with a three-point shot, and, of course, people who can actually handle the ball, people who have some form of a playoff experience. And it's definitely a situation that I think that they're trying to make a move, especially considering the poor 4-8 start that they've made as far as the make of this video, to go into this. Now, of course, Blake Griffin, of course, did not perform well during the playoffs due to the fact that he couldn't play the first few games, and of course had to come back rushing back from injury. And of course now only playing 2 games this season so far, coming back from that injury, but definitely hasn't seemed, as far as his stats, to drop off majorly. But of course I didn't want to use those since it is only 2 games into the season, and it's really not reasonable to go by an average of 2 games. So whenever we look at something like this, I think the fact that Blake Griffin to Portland does make sense. I think that Kevin Love to Portland can make sense in many ways for it. Especially, it makes sense for both teams. They're trying to get rid of that cap space that both players are really making up, and Portland's basically taking a big gamble here. We're trying to be able to make sure that Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum can work, and adding that third all-star caliber player in there. So we're definitely going to have to see whether or not we see a trade between those 2 teams, between either one of these 2 teams, and see what directly can occur from this. Of course, in a situation like this, both teams, all 3 of these teams are doing bad as far as what we've seen in this season. Now, of course, whenever we look at it, we think the fact that the Cavaliers isn't obvious. They're not going to do good. They're still in I believe, a good rebuild for a few more seasons. And then, of course, the Detroit Pistons, on the other hand, though, is a team that, of course, probably expected to do good, as I mentioned in my videos before, but they very much have underachieved in the last few seasons. They've had, to me, standardable talent, at least enough to make the playoffs in the Eastern Conference, and either they come in as the 8th seed or they don't make the playoffs at all, which is very shocking considering the fact that they do have talent to make the playoffs in the Eastern Conference, but it always seems that they underperform there. And I think the fact that they can't really risk the fact that Andre Drummond may leave for nothing, and of course, like I mentioned before, I think that Blake Griffin's trade value is at an all-time high, so I expect him to most likely be traded this season. But guys, tell me what your guys' thoughts are on this. Do you think the fact that Hassan Whiteside will be traded, considering the slow start that the Portland Trail Blazers have gotten off to, or do you think the fact that they will try to maintain this team and try to make it work? Tell me what your guys' thoughts are in the comments below. And if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure that you guys leave a like and subscribe to become part of the Greek Army today. And as always, this is Sparta.